All right. Record to the cloud because I don't want this taking up all the space on my computer. All right, you ready?
I'm ready, man.
All right.
I'm ready to go. It sounds like we are on live. Is that the case? Is that what you are experiencing on your end, Andre?
Yep, we're here. How you doing,
Okay.
man?
I'm doing just fabulous. As we were talking in our little green room conversation, I'm doing just well. And hopefully everyone out in our audience is being safe on a number of fronts, whether or not it's coronavirus or it's a gunshot type of thing or the economic calamity that we find ourselves in. But hopefully everyone is being safe and are well in those three domains.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'm doing good as well. Went for a nice, long, intense run. You know, that's like my meditation time. It calms me down. Before I run, I'm jumpy and agitated and ready to hurt somebody. But then after the run, I'm like Gandhi. You know, I'm ready to kind of just suck in everything and be loving. So definitely definitely my run is a positive thing. I've been keeping up with it for since the closure of our or since the coronavirus. I've been kind of doing that every other day, going for at least a 3-mile run. So that's been something I've been able to keep up with. I think this is the longest time I've been able to stay consistent with it. I don't miss any days, so that's good, showing that I like it. So I want to also open up our platform to our audience. First of all, before I even ask some of the questions, I want to make sure that I acknowledge to our audience that we haven't been on for the last couple of weeks, just because we've been trying to work out some details and some nuts and bolts about getting this programming down. But now we are here, and we're going to stay consistent with this every Monday. Around 6 o'clock. We're going to try to hit it at 6, but if we don't, it'll be right around 6, between 6 and 6:10. And we're going to try to make that as consistent as possible. Last week we attempted to actually talk about struggle, and it didn't go the way we planned it. So we're going to revisit that topic today. I know for me, I don't know about for you, Dad, but for me, my answers have evolved since last week. Maybe for you it's the same. Maybe it's evolved too. But let's kind of dive into that. But for our audience, I want to make sure that you guys chime in as well. So the question that I want to pose to the audience is, what kind of struggle have you been through? Maybe you're currently going through a struggle right now. Maybe you've gone through some intense struggles in the past, and you don't necessarily have to go deep into the struggle, but maybe kind of share with us and audience, and then maybe we can kind of chime in based on that, because that's what we're going to be doing amongst ourselves. We're going to kind of chime in back and forth based on what it is that we share today live. So first, I'm going to start with you, Dr. Bowie. Because I'm sure you're going to have some good insights out there. So the question for you, sir, is to name a situation that was a struggle for you.
Okay, so I want to pause on that question and have you ask me that question again. And before you ask me that question again, I want to precept this conversation to say this, is that our whole conversation is a dialogue around love. And so you have to receive that. Our whole conversation is a conversation around love. Now, in our work, we've discovered that you can't just jump into love. It's just too overwhelming. It's too much. And so we've said that, well, let's kind of break it down and let's give people some cookie crumbs on a pathway on getting there. And so that's what we're talking about today. and we're going to start the conversation by introducing ourselves to struggle, because that's like you're opening the door to love through struggle. So I just wanted to say that as a precept. And so now I want to go back to your question, Andre, and get you to ask me that question again. And I can tell you right now, I'm going to respond to it a bit different than what I responded to it last week, even though we weren't able to record it for our larger audience, but I'm gonna respond to it a little bit differently. So go ahead and ask me that question.
Well, I mean, you just opening a Pandora's box of things that I need to address. I mean, you went on, you said something about love where I have some questions about, but I'm gonna keep us on track. I mean, if we have some time later on in the show, I'll go ahead and I'll ask some of those questions, because there's some things that I need to get clear on as far as where you're concerned. There's some things that I need to push back on as far as what you said, but we're not going to do that right now. I'm just going to ask my question. So my question for you again, number 2, second time, name a situation that was a struggle for you.
Okay. So I'm going to name, because I mean, I'm 67 years old. I've had so many experiences, but I want to name something that I can talk about, and a lot of you on this call can relate to, and that is me trying to get a leather sweater in high school. Okay, so that's the genesis of my struggle. I wanted a leather sweater in high school. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was the genesis of the struggle. Why? The why that I wanted it is because it was in my mythology or my thought process that if I got a leather sweater, that the girls would now adore me and love me and accept me, because I had a tangible artifact in a sweater that says that I'm something. Okay. And so it was a struggle. Okay. And so I dived into it as a struggle. Obviously, as I'm sure that we will uncover it over the coming weeks, that the deepness of the struggle was not uncovered by my initial assessment of what I was struggling against. I had to go much deeper. But I found that just thinking about that experience is helpful in terms of understanding we all go through this thing about we're not enough, we are, Brene Brown talks a lot about it, and here we are, we struggle with it. Does that answer the question? That's the struggle that I'm talking about. The struggle about getting this varsity sweater in high school.
Okay. Well, I guess my question for you is maybe I'm not understanding it because I'm trying to fool with all these logistics of this Facebook Live thing. But I guess when you say that your struggle was getting your varsity letter in high school, right?
Yes.
Why was that? I mean, give me some more. Why was that a struggle?
Okay, fine. Okay. So why was that a struggle? Okay. Now, certainly why I was doing it real time during the time was a lot different than my understanding about it now. Okay. I can only articulate, looking back at it, what was really happening for me. And that was having a sense of belonging. That by me having that leather sweater, I become a part of a club. Now, there's some theories about it. I mean, some of you may know about Maslow theories of his hierarchy matrix that he's well known for. That's not really, I mean, we can talk about that, but the bottom line is that I'm trying to belong is the motivation behind it. The motivation is a belonging model. I needed to belong. And by me having the sweater, I could now belong.
Mm. So just a follow-up question, Dr. Bowie. Were you able to accomplish what your motive was at the time? Were you
Okay,
able-
that's a great question. Okay, so like anything else, human endeavors, once you put your mind to something, you'd be surprised on what you're able to accomplish. I was able to accomplish that motive. I mean, the motive was me getting a letter, and I was very ingenious, so to speak, in terms of being able to accomplish it. So I tried out for cross country.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tried out for cross country, in our school at the time, there was hardly any black folks that would try out for cross country, and that the top 4 people on the cross country team would get their letter. There was only 4 people on the cross country team. So I'm not saying I was good, but I got my letter. Okay. So I accomplished, in a pragmatic way, the letter. And I got the sweater, and you had the patches on it. And, I was part of a so-called varsity club.
Mm-hmm.
What I experienced, however, I still did not belong. So there was still the struggle because I wasn't going down deep enough to really articulate what was the real struggle.
Oh, so even though you were trying to belong, it wasn't the belonging that you were looking for. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. I mean, I thought I was going to be Mr. Popular. I emulated my brother and whatnot, and he was popular. I thought all the girls were going to be running after me. That didn't materialize. I just thought my life would just be miraculously, just great. And none of that materialized. Although the objective was. I didn't get what I want. So now it's something else. It must be something else. And I would assert it's always something else.
Excellent. Well, good. Thanks for that. Thanks for that story. I never knew about that story. Well, I mean, I kind of knew about that story, but not to the great detail that you just shared with me just right now. So I'm going to answer that same question, and I'll repeat it again for our audience. And again, I want our audience to chime in as far as either feedback they have on Dr. Bowie, myself, or just if they want to share some things that I can go ahead and display there, and I will call you guys out at the end of the session. And if there's any questions, I'll also answer those questions as well. So the question is the name a situation that was a struggle for you. So when I was thinking about this last week, I had an answer, and now that answer has sort of evolved. I think I mentioned that earlier. And when I was going out running today, that's really when it hit me about how this really impacted me in a way where kind of showed up in a lot of different areas in my life. And I'm not going to go into all those details, like you said. Like, I mean, you've obviously lived longer than I have, but I still have some experience behind my 36 years as well. So just kind of diving deep into that. The hugest struggle for me was the struggle with addressing and acknowledging emotions. And when I say that with the mindset being that, as a man, as a Black man, we really do not do a good job with teaching men in particular how to process emotions. What like emotions are just kind of like they're a sign of weakness.
Okay.
And they're not really a sign of they're not a part of the human experience.
Can I ask any questions during your narrative?
No, you can't ask any questions
Okay.
right now. You write them down.
Okay.
Write them down. Because I don't want to lose my train of thought.
Okay. All right.
Write them down.
Go ahead.
So let me just give you the the background behind that. So growing up, I grew up in Southfield, Michigan, and I lived in Southfield, Michigan until I was about 15 years old. And in Southfield, I mean, I was involved in a lot of things. I was involved in the church. I was involved in school. I was involved in sports. I was involved in social events, things of that nature. I had all these things going on for me. And there were a lot of things that happen, and I wouldn't necessarily say that this doesn't happen to everybody. I think that this happens to a lot of different people. But for me in particular, there are a lot of situations where something were to happen to me and it would cause emotional reaction to me. And what I would do is essentially dismiss it as something that wasn't really a big deal and distract myself with something else to get my mind off of whatever it was that was pressing at the time. So let me give you an example. So I was playing with my friends in the street. I think I was about 11 years old. I was playing with my friends. We were in the street. I think we were like playing catch or kickball or something like that. But we were in the street. And so as we were playing kickball in the street, a car was driving down the street, and typically we would just kind of get out of the way or whatever, and we let the car by, and then we continue playing. And so one day we were doing the same thing, and a car approached us, and in the car, we could see the car coming quickly because it was loud and it was going fast. And so all the kids, like they dived out of the way because this guy, I mean, he wasn't stopping. He was just going to continue to go. So we had to get out of the way. So we all got out of the way. None of us got hit, and the car passed us. And so I got back into the street, and I threw my hands up like this. Just like, what the hell, dude? You know what I'm saying? I mean, we're kids. We're playing in the street. You're driving this car. You're driving down like it's a highway. What's going on? The car then stopped. He stopped abruptly, and then he backed up. And he backed up to where his driver's side was pointing towards me. And so he looked at me. This guy, as he became closer to me, I saw that he was probably a teenager, like 18, 19 years old. And he looked at me, and I remember what his face looks like to this day because it was scary. But he looked up to me and said, "Do we have a problem?" And as I'm looking at him, he's holding something that looks like that's something that's chrome. And so I'm looking closer at what is this chrome thing this dude is holding? And from where I was looking at, it appears to be a gun. And he's holding it right there on his, like near his lap, right there by where the clutch is. And he asks me a second time, "Is there a problem?" And I'm frozen at this point. I'm like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? Like, this escalated fast. So I put my hands up and I kind of back away from the car. And then my friends, they look at see what's going on and they kind of back away from the car. And then the dude mumbles something, says something, and he pulls off. So I remember I'm looking at that as, wow, how did that happen? You know what I'm saying? Like I never conceived in my mind that situation would get to the point where this dude is brandishing a weapon and I'm 11 years old, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know how to process this. So essentially what I do is, we just continue to play. You know what I'm saying? We continue to go out and play, but I'm thinking about this a lot. So why is that important? Why do I bring that up? In 1999, we made, as you know, because you're my father, we made a move to Chicago. And I did not want to make that move. And when we made that move, it severed all of my distractions. Like I mentioned at the beginning of how I'm explaining this to you is I had a lot of distractions. I had church, I had school, I had all these things, sports, and I severed all of those distractions. I had no distractions, and essentially I was left alone with my thoughts a lot. So I wasn't really involved in many sports. I stopped trying to go to church. I didn't like going to church anymore, so I kind of disconnected that. School, I was just kind of on autopilot with school. I was just doing just enough to get a B, and that was it. But I wasn't engaged in the school. I would just kind of go through the motions just to get you and mom off my back. And so essentially, I would come home and I would just watch TV and go to sleep. And because the distractions weren't there, what ended up happening is that I started to dream about people coming up to me with a gun and threatening me. And it happened to the point where I couldn't go to sleep. And so I just kind of, again, I brushed it off. I'm thinking like, you know what, this is just fantasy. I'm watching too many movies or whatever the situation. And maybe that was part of the situation, but I kept having these dreams, and it got to the point by the time I was 18, I couldn't really sleep. And so what was starting to happen is that I needed to go to sleep because I had to go to school. I was starting to go to college. So I started taking sleeping pills so I can go to sleep. And so in high school, I took those sleeping pills and it did the job. Eventually, I didn't need those sleeping pills anymore, but eventually those dreams started to come back up when I was in college. And so I started to take more sleeping pills. And it got to the point where I was taking sleeping pills every day. And so at about 23, 24 years old, I'm at the point where I've graduated from college. I'm taking sleeping pills to go to sleep because I can't sleep. And I'm saying, listen, I'm at a point right now where this isn't normal. This isn't right. I was at the maturity level to know that there was something wrong in that situation. And so at that point, around the time where I turned 25, I started to really think about that situation that happened when I was 11, when that guy brandished that gun to me, and I never processed it. I never talked to anybody about it, didn't talk to a counselor about it, didn't talk to my parents about it, didn't really even talk to my friends about it. I just kind of built it into my system, okay? And so to recap, that struggle is that, you know what, like I wasn't really trained on how to process emotion. No adult really pulled me aside to train me on how to process emotion. So I felt that I was kind of left to my own wits and maturity to learn how to do that. And it wasn't until I got some maturity is when I started to focus more on my emotional being. And if you fast forward 10 years from the time I turned 25, I'm in a much better place on how to process that. What are your questions?
Well, I have several. So I'll start off with number one. My first question is why was it a struggle when this guy brandished this chrome colored or gun, or maybe he had something, whatever he had? Why was that a struggle for you?
Well, I'm not sure why that was a struggle. I think, well, let me think about that real quick. I believe that it was a struggle because it scared me. There was a fear model. And it wasn't a way that I could conceptualize that situation happening. Like, I did not know. Normally, if I'm about to have a gun pulled out, I'm thinking that I can see it coming. And that's just in my own mind at 11 years old. But at that time, like, it just happened. It was like a shock. So it caught me off guard. That was the first part of the struggle. And then it scared me. That was the second part of the struggle. I was very terrified.
So you adopted, in terms of what was facilitating the struggle, it was steeped in a fear conversation.
Yes.
It was fear. Okay. So for those of us in our audience that watch the show, I don't watch TV, but I do like this show, and so I apologize for it. Called Shock, and when you have this young boy being confronted with a gun in his face, and his reaction to it is just profound in terms of my mind. So that was one question. Fear kind of facilitates a different way of approaching anything in life. fear does what it does. It's always short term. It's always survival. And so you have it. My next question is a comment that I made to you guys coming up, and it is a profound comment that my dad gave me, and so I gave it to you guys, and I'm sure you've heard this. You will thank me when you're 30. That there's a certain amount of experience that you just have to experience. I can't help you with. And I have to allow it to happen. I have to give you space where you can experience certain, nuances of life, and that can be confronted by an angry person, whatever. I just have to let that happen. And based on that, what I'm hearing, that there is a lament that you as an individual missed out on having a more comprehensive development of emotional proficiency. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And I would offer that, okay, I'm a parent, I'm just offering, you have to give your parents grace. You have to give them kindness, because they don't get an owner's manual. They do the best they can.
Yeah. And
my parents did the best. I adore my parents and my grandparents, and certainly a lot of their abilities and attributes I wouldn't endorse with my grandchildren, but I respect them and I adore them by the examples that they were able to put in front of me, that I was able to adopt.
Yeah, and let me respond to that. I know as I'm speaking on that, it kind of seems like I'm kind of throwing some blame out there, and maybe I am throwing some pie on my adults growing up. But what I would argue is that was actually a good thing for me as an adult, because I experienced that. I now, as an adult, recognize that our children today need somebody to process their emotions, not to put out a rosy colored feeling of emotion. I don't think that that's realistic. To me, that guy brandishing that gun, that wasn't the bad part of the situation. It's not like that shouldn't have happened. And it's not that the fact that I wasn't really taught how to process emotion, it wasn't like that wasn't able to happen. But now, in my current state, I now understand with almost a level, like 100% level of certainty, that our young people are experiencing things like I experienced to a 100th degree or even under, but it doesn't necessarily matter where they're at. They need somebody there, adults, to process those things, not to cover it up or make it so it doesn't happen. But when those things happen, how are they able to process those emotions so it can become a part of them, not just to push it to the side and pretend like it doesn't happen, which is what I did.
How is that experience an opportunity to exercise an experience in love?
Well, I would have to think about that question, but I think that if you're putting me on the spot, I would say that it allows, that experience to me can be a great opportunity to allow an individual with an opportunity to connect with another individual.
Let me throw it out at you this way. You may have heard this from your uncles and your aunties about Big Time Bowie back in the day. But there was one time that I was involved with a lot of guys that I probably would not be involved with today. And this one guy comes up to me with a shotgun. and he points it into my face. And I could have been drunk. I could have been high. I mean, I could have been anything. I don't even remember. I remember some parts of it. But what I do remember is that I didn't care what he did. I just didn't care. You know, if he would have shot me, I would just have been dead. And I didn't care. And I see that in our own experience here on the west side and the south side of Chicago, where there's youth that have that same type of hubris, so to speak, that they, I mean, you know, pointing a gun at me, is that all you got? That's just not going to be enough. You know, you're going to have the wherewithal to pull the trigger too. And the reason why I say that, Andre, is that that experience taught me how foolish I was. I mean, I look back at it and maybe I can boast about it and say, well, yeah, this guy pulled a shotgun on me. I saw him, he got it right in my face. It was a hair trigger. I mean, somebody could, and there was all types of guys around him. They could have pushed him. You know how guys do. They could have just blew me away. And I look back at that. I helped facilitate that whole conversation. And it was foolish on my part. It was a foolish conversation on my part. That's what it taught me about love, that I did not value my life at the time. I mean, I was like 19, 20 years old, maybe 21 years old. I did not value my life, and so I didn't care what you did. So that taught me that the love conversation is that, you know, we talk about Black Lives Matter. Well, do my life matter? And if so, what would make me think so? And for me to do something that like I did with no thought. I mean, I was Superman. I mean, anything could happen. But God, you know, he deals with fools all the time. And, you know, he said, well, no, it's not, today is not your day. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, I would say that, you know, as a person that is a counselor and a person that sits down and talks or listens to human beings on a semi day-to-day basis, I would say that there's probably more people than you think with that same mentality. However, they're just going about it in totally different ways. When you tell me that somebody puts a gun into your face, a shotgun into your face, and you not caring that somebody pulls the trigger, like I have total empathy for that, because I've never had that happen to me before, but I remember having that same mentality, probably around the same age that you had that gun brandished in your face. And not only that, is I work with teenagers that have the same mentality. Maybe they're not getting guns in their faces, but some of them are in gangs. Some of them heavy drug users, participating in a lot of behaviors that, if not careful, could end their lives. And so I would argue that there's a lot of individuals out there with the same mentality that you have. And then my question would be, well, how do you graduate from that? You know what I'm saying? How do you pull out of that?
Yeah. That's the question. And I mean, I have a theoretical thought process on doing that, and that's part of the struggle. There are, for lack of a better way to describe it, there are angels that come to us in those times. And Charles Handy describes them as there's three different types of angels, so to speak. That's my own language, that comes to us. One angel is we learn how to do something differently. He calls it a new technology, a new way of doing things. A new way of doing things and thinking about things allows us to get past that and take it to another level. Okay, that's one way. The second way is we have a new person that's part of our lives that wasn't a part of our lives before, that introduces new ways of being, new ways of thinking, new ways of perceiving our reality, that offers us just almost a clean slate on how we might live our lives. In that particular incident, as we talked about, about my thing with the shotgun, the incident that changed was me getting a job at a bank that told me, well, you can't be a thug. You can't be the thug that you think you are and work at a bank. Okay. So that kind of woke me up to that. And then the final way is what is called an SEE, or a C type of event. SEE, a significant emotional event. Quite often, it will take a significant emotional event to wake us up in our struggle to see that we're actually yearning for a greater experience of this energy that I'm going to frame as love. And so Handy says, well, there's going to be 3 different ways that's going to facilitate, that's going to ignite that, that's going to trigger that. And so this is a time, even in this talk, and even our audience here has an opportunity to think about, well, which one of those things are triggering us right now? Is there a new individual that it could be a marriage, it could be a child, it could be a friend, it could be a lot of things that changes our perspective? Or is there a new way of doing things? I mean, I'm amazed on how many people in my community, and I talk about my community as more of an older community, that live in a bubble, and when you talk about Zoom, they have no idea what you're talking about. I'm saying, what? Zoom has been around for 5 or 6 years. People have been doing it. You're in a bubble. Because you're in a bubble doesn't mean the world continues to go on and do other things. So the question becomes am I in a bubble that's limiting my experience on this thing called life? And then the final thing, which I would, as much as possible, try not to experience, is a significant emotional event that somebody has to die. You have to lose your job. You have to be evicted. You have to be homeless for a while. Usually in humans, it takes some type of traumatic event to actually wake you up. Doesn't have to be that way, but usually it takes that to take us through struggle to the next stage, which is sacrifice. And we're not even talking about it. We're still in struggle right now. As a pathway to experience the energy of love in a much expansive way.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to end it there. Thank you, Dr. Bowie, for that insight. I'm going to glance over to our comment sections. We don't have a lot of comments there, but we do have a couple people that chimed in. Aseneth Ruiz, one of my coworkers, she says, hi, what's up, Ruiz? I miss you. I hope I get to see you sometime soon. I haven't seen Ruiz since they shut down the school back in March. So hopefully, that will allow us to see each other soon sometime. So Ernest Johnson, one of my good friends, says, good evening, Buoys. All right. What's up, EJ? How you doing, sir? EJ Senior, I should say, not EJ Junior. So those are our 2 comments right now. Since we're about to cut off, we won't be able to respond to anybody else's comments, but I would like for our audience, those are the people that are watching this, to please comment on there. I want to get more dialogue. I want to do less talking here and more talking out there. I want questions, concerns, feedback in our comment sections regarding what either Dr. Bowie is saying and what myself is saying, or even if they just want to share their own experience of struggle. Because I think that's a very important part of what our experiences is and what we can do with our organization when we talk about uniting the energy of love. So, Dr. Bowie, you have anything else that you want to add before we sign off?
No, this has been great, and I'm looking forward to learning more about this whole concept of love through my interactions with our audience here. So thank you for your willingness to be vulnerable, to be open, to share your experience, to help me grow as I live this life, this thing called life. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, we're signing off. We'll see you guys next week at 6, same time. And I will post a topic in our page. Please like our page. Please share our videos. Thank you guys very much. And you guys all have a good night. All right. So I'm going to stop recording. Hold on. Stop recording.